Hello, this is Angelia with today's Bible reading. Today's reading comes from Genesis 17, Abraham and the Covenant of Circumcision. I don't know that anybody cared for that one. Any man, anyway. Now, when Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless. I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you exceedingly. Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you will be the father of a multitude of nations. And he was. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings will come forth from you. I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant. So that means forever. To be God to you and your descendants after you. I will give to you and to your descendants after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession. See, everlasting. And I will be their God. God said further to Abraham, Now as for you, you shall keep my commandment, you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant, which you shall keep, between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin. And it shall be the sign of the covenant between me and you. And every male among you who is 8 days old shall be circumcised throughout your generations. A servant who is born in the house, or who is bought with money from any, see in little pages, foreigner who is not of your descendants, a servant who is born in your house, or who is bought with your money, shall surely be circumcised. Thus shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. But an uncircumcised male, who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. Then God said to Abram, As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and indeed I will give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, Will a child be born to a man 100 years old? And will Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. But God said, No, but Sarah your wife will bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I will bless him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this season next year. When he finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Then Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all the servants who were born in his house, and all who were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's household, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the very same day, as God had said to him. Now Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the very same day Abraham was circumcised, and Ishmael his son. All the men of his household who were born in the house or bought with money from a foreigner were circumcised with him. So everyone of his household, by birth or by purchase or, working for him, all had to get circumcised to keep that first covenant with God. So, let's see what the biblical scholars have to say about this. Let's see. My covenant between me and you. Another reaffirmation of his unilateral covenant with Abram, which did not mean that there would be no responsibilities falling upon its recipients, a multitude of nations. The threefold reaffirmation of the divine promise of many descendants, perhaps including Isaac's and Ishmael's, brackets the change of name, giving it significant emphasis. Your name shall be Abraham. The name, meaning father of many nations, affected Abraham's new relationship to God, as well as his new identity based on God's promise of seed. Kings will come forth from you. This promise highlights the reality of more than one people group, or nation in its own right, coming from Abraham. I will establish my covenant. This relationship was set up at God's initiative and also designated as an everlasting covenant, thus applying to Abraham's posterity with equal force and bringing forth the declaration, I will be their God. This pledge became the dictum of the covenant relationship between Yahweh, or Jehovah, and Israel. All the land of Canaan. God's reclamation of his covenant promises to Abraham being deeded by divine right to him and his descendants as an everlasting possession. You shall keep my covenant. Despite repeated disobedience by the patriarchs and the nation, God's faithfulness to his covenant commitment never wavered. Divine attestations of Abraham's obedience were pronounced years after the formal establishment of his covenant. Though the nation was apostate, there was always an object remnant of faithful for Israelites. The sign of the covenant, circumcision, cutting away the male foreskin, was not entirely new in this period of history, but the special religious and theocratic significance then applied to it was entirely new, thus identifying the circumcision as belonging to the physical and ethnical lineage of Abraham. Without divine revelation, the rite would not have had this distinctive significance. Thus it remained a theocratic distinctive of Israel. There was a health benefit, since disease could be kept in the folds of the foreskin, so that removing it prevented that. Historically, Jewish women have had the lowest rate of cervical cancer, but the symbolism had to do with the need to cut away sin and be cleansed. It was the male organ which most clearly demonstrated the depth of depravity because it carried the seed that produced depraved sinners. Thus, circumcision symbolized the need for profoundly deep cleansing to reverse the effects of depravity. 8 days old, the same time frame was repeated in Leviticus 12:3. Shall be cut from his people. Being cut off from the covenant community meant loss of temporal benefits stemming from being part of the special, chosen, and theocratic nations, even to the point of death by divine judgment. Sarah to Sarah. Fittingly, since Sarai, my princess, would be the ancestress of the promised nations and kings, God changed her name to Sarah, taking away the limiting personal pronoun my and calling her princess, mother of nations, fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart. A proper reaction of adoration over God's promises was marred by the incredulity of Abraham. He knew he was to be a father, but this was the first mention that his barren old wife was to be the mother. Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Abraham's plea for a living son to be the designated beneficiary of God's promises betrayed just how impossible it was for him and Sarah to have children. Again, patiently but firmly, rejecting Abraham's alternative solutions, God emphatically settled the matter by bracketing his gracious bestowal of much posterity to Ishmael with affirmations that indeed Sarah's son would be the heir of the everlasting covenant. For the first time, God named the son. Call him Isaac. The name of the promised son means he laughs, an appropriate reminder to Abraham of his initial faithless reaction to God's promise. The very same day, without delay, Abraham fully carried out God's command on himself, on every male, and on all the men of his household, probably much to their dismay. Anytime I've ever heard anybody say the word circumcision, men are like, ooh, so, let's look at some supporting scriptures. Okay, Deuteronomy 4:25. When you become the father of children and children's children, and you have remained long in the land, and act corruptly, and make an idol in the form of anything, and do that which is evil in the sight of the Lord your God, so as to provoke him to anger, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that you will surely quickly perish from the land where you are going over the Jordan to possess it. You shall not live long on it, but will be utterly destroyed. The Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where the Lord drives you. There you will serve gods, the work of man's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him if you search for him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in distress, and all these things have come upon you in the latter days, you will return to the Lord your God, and listen to his voice. For the Lord your God is a compassionate God. He will not fail you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant with your fathers which he swore to them. And thank the Lord for that. Deuteronomy 30:1. So it shall be when all these things have come upon you, the blessings and the curse which I have set before you, and you call them to mind in all nations where the Lord your God had banished you, and you return to the Lord your God, and obey him with all your heart and soul, according to all that I command you today, you and your sons. Then the Lord your God will restore you from captivity and have compassion on you, and will gather you again from all the peoples where the Lord your God has scattered you. If your outcasts are at the ends of the earth, from there the Lord your God will gather you, and from there he will bring you back. The Lord your God will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he will prosper you and multiply you more than your fathers. Moreover, the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants. So here's where that becomes a thing that he feels like is more important than the physical thing that they're talking about. To love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, so that you may live. The Lord your God will inflict all these curses on your enemies. And on those who hate you. So remember that, folks, are coming against the children of Israel, who persecuted you. And you shall again obey the Lord, and observe all his commandments, which I command you today. Then the Lord your God will prosper you abundantly in all the work of your hand, in the offspring of your body, and in the offspring of your cattle, and in the produce of your ground. For the Lord will again rejoice over you for good, just as he rejoiced over your fathers. 1 Chronicles 16:15. Remember his covenant forever, the word which he commanded to 1,000 generations, the covenant which he made with Abraham, and his oath to Isaac. He also confirmed it to Jacob for a statute, to Israel as an everlasting covenant, saying,